How long will my car last? That is a question that I get asked a lot, and there isn't a good answer for it. I can't predict how long your car will last. Nobody can predict how long your car will last, but if you take care of it, it's probably going to last a lot longer than you might think. I talk to a lot of people that are shopping for a new car and concerned about the miles of the new car, but also they might be simply getting rid of their old car because it has a lot of miles on it. I've seen some vehicles with tons of miles on them. This by no means has the most miles of anything out there, but I just wanted to give you a quick tour of this thing and show you what a car with kind of higher miles might look like, and maybe wouldn't be exactly what you'd expect. The history on this car is that I bought it 8 years ago with 252,000 miles on it, and it was my daily driver for 4 years, and 4 years ago I bought a different car, another Volkswagen diesel, and I sold this to my brother, and he's been daily driving it for the last 4 years. So currently it has 378,451 miles. So we're about 21,000 miles away from 400,000. And although there's some bumps and bruises and there's a little bit of rust on the rockers, it's been a Minnesota car, well, for at least the last 8 years, but the guy I bought it from is also from Minnesota. So I guess for probably at least 10 years it's been a Minnesota car, and I don't know beyond that. But it's held up pretty well, and it's still a really good driving car. It's the diesel, it's a manual transmission. There's been stuff done to it over the years, and in fact one of the big problems with these engines is the cams fail, and they kind of fail at about 150,000 miles. So this one was replaced by the previous owner at 150,000 miles, and then it was replaced by me at 300,000 miles, and we're still going strong since then. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour of it, and we're going to try and take it out for a spin. It's a snowy mess outside, but I think it's worth taking this out for a spin because it's really a fun car to drive, and I'd hop in this thing and drive it anywhere. I just washed it, so everything's a little bit wet, but it's a pretty simple car under the hood here. Oil changes are a breeze. There's the oil filter housing. Spin that thing off, change out the filter, no big deal. It's been a low maintenance car. It's a diesel, so you've got to swap out the fuel filter every 25,000 miles, timing belt water pump every 100,000 miles, but really not anything too extravagant. Not much different than a gas vehicle. Inside, it's held up well. Probably looks similar or better than a lot of other 06 Jettas. Here we are in the back seat, same story. Held up pretty well. This car does have a sunroof. I put the WeatherTech mats in it and tinted the windows when I got it. So that's kind of a view of what this thing looks like. It's got a little bit of rust in the rear right there. The rockers do have a little bit of rust, although they look probably better than they are. There's a little bit of rust right there. But all in all, not too bad. A little bit of rust over here on this side. But yeah, I would say it's held up pretty well for being close to 400,000 miles, and a lot of them in Minnesota. So we'll take this thing out for a spin, see how she drives. All right, it's snowy out, it's cold out. We're gonna fire this thing up and take it out for a spin. So first off, it's a diesel, so you obviously gotta wait for the glow plugs. There's a little glow plug light here, cycled pretty quick. Start this thing up. Now this thing is before the common rail, and everybody eventually went to common rails for their diesels, and the fuel control got much better. They quieted them down quite a bit. There's probably numerous improvements they did, but it seems like when they went to the common rails, they really quieted them down, smoothed them out and all that. So this one is a little bit more old school, more diesel-y, which I don't think is a bad thing. I kind of enjoy it. So that's what we're working with. enjoyable combination to drive around. I just don't get tired of it. I like the Passats with the DSG transmissions. I've driven the newer generation Passats also with a manual, which is a 2015 year only, but I really enjoy a manual transmission in these things. For this generation, these motors did not make a whole lot of power, but they were torquey, and that's really what you need when you're on the road. If you're trying to go to a racetrack, this is not going to be the car for you, but if you're just looking for something that's going to be a good daily driver and enjoyable to drive, this is the thing to get. It really makes the power where you need it. When I still owned this car, right around the 320,000 mile mark, me and my buddy took it down to South Padre Island. So we did about a 3,600 mile road trip in this thing over the course of about, I think it was only 5 days. It wasn't a particularly long trip time-wise, but we did do 3,600 miles in 5 days, and it performed flawlessly. It's currently riding on some Continental snow tires, and it works quite well. Today's pretty slick out, but it's not concerning. I see the traction control light come on. It is slick out today, but it works pretty good. And most importantly, it's not just how does this go with winter tires on it, it's how does it stop and how does it handle. That is what most people overlook. This is kind of a side rant on getting winter tires on something, but what you're going to lose out on is braking and handling just as much as accelerating. And at the end of the day, it's not the accelerating that's going to get you in trouble. It's not being able to stop or not being able to go around a corner that's going to be the bad news. This thing has had the struts and the shocks replaced at some point in the ownership of me and my brother, but overall there has not been much done to the suspension in this thing. It's a simple suspension system. Some of the Volkswagens of this era, like the Passats, had a bit more complicated suspension with a whole lot of ball joints in the front ends, and this thing just is simple and reliable. It's also had a couple wheel bearings done. I think both of the rear wheel bearings have been replaced, but you know, it's got a lot of miles on it, so at a certain point that can be expected. Well, there you have it. There's the last spin I'll probably take in this thing. I like it. It's kind of a shame to see it go down the road, but it'll be a good car for somebody else. So, how many miles will it last? We'll never know.